I'd like to welcome a very special guest to the stage. Rhea Maniar is the chair of the Florida High School Democrats. The future of democracy is with people like her. Please welcome her.
Hi everyone. My name is Rhea. I am 17 years old. I'm a senior at Trinity Prep in Winter Park in the Orlando area. And I'm the chair of the Florida High School Democrats, which is one of the Florida Democratic Party's 14 statewide caucuses. We're the youngest caucus. We're made only for kids aged 14 to 18. And we basically look over all of the Democrat clubs in high schools. Apart from that, I am also the vice chair of Nikki Freed's brand new youth council for the party, which is a brand new initiative started by her after she got elected to kind of bring youth organizations around Florida into the same room to talk to each other and figure out what we're going to do in 2024. So today I'm going to be giving you guys a little bit of updates about what Florida is going to look like in 2024 in regards to the youth vote, which we all know is going to be very, very important to ensure Joe Biden and Democrats' successes up and down the ballot. A little bit about me. I got involved back in 2020 when Joe Biden was running. I've always been very politically minded, and on Thursday night, I won't be in Florida anymore to come next year because on Thursday night I got into Harvard. So I'm really excited to continue my work outside of Florida, but come next year there'll be a different chair who will hopefully come back to come and speak. So we're going to go over kind of the purpose of youth involvement in Florida, why we need it so bad, the accomplishments that we've already seen across the state, and the new initiatives that are happening, like every day. Before we go into it, I know that it's really confusing between the youth vote and young people, like what exactly is the age range, so I want to make sure those definitions are clear before I continue. So there are 3 youth caucuses, actually, within the Florida Democratic Party. I'm not 18 yet, but I can still vote in the internal elections to manage the budget and confirm the chair, stuff like that, which is awesome, and not a lot of states have that. So there's the Florida Young Democrats, which is ages 14 to 40, which is a really, really big age range. That's crazy. That's a high school freshman, someone who just came out to middle school, all the way up to almost my mom. So that's really, that's crazy. So we kind of broke it down a little bit. We created the Florida College Democrats, which is aged 18 to 22. Those are only college students. It's like you have college Democrats, and there are a bunch of college chapters. And then there's the high school Democrats, which is my organization. Schools typically have there's environmental clubs that are technically Democrat clubs. There are GSAs, gay straight alliances, that we take into Florida High School Democrats. So we kind of just focus on the high schoolers because we know that Florida Young Democrats is just way too broad in an age range for there to be actual change. And then there's the Youth Council where the statewide young leaders, we all meet up once a month and we talk about how we can plug in to what the party is doing, how we can help, and how we can make sure that youth are continually brought into the conversation every single day. And then the DEC Youth Student Councils are one of the initiatives of the Youth Council to bring that model to the county level, to a local level. There's one in Orange County, there's one in Alachua County, and there's one in Flagler County, and we're looking to expand. Jefferson County also just started. And they're for local students aged 14 to 22 to get involved, because right now, more than ever, we're seeing an attack on high schools. We've had multiple high schoolers come to us and be like, I want to start a high school dance club, but my school won't allow it. So, and we also know that for our homeschool students, this is an issue too. So this is an opportunity for kids who aren't able to start a club at their high school, aren't able to start a club at their private college, or are homeschooled to get involved, even if they don't typically go to a school that has a Democrat club. These are all the organizations that are represented on the Youth Council. They're not all inherently political. We have PRISM, which is Youth LGBTQIA+ organization, Voters of Tomorrow, which is a nonpartisan voter registration organization, Team Enough, which fights up against gun violence, the NAACP, the Sunrise Movement, Local Progress, Dream Defenders, and Stand for Freedom, which is like an educational organization. So obviously the 2022 midterms was really, really bad for the youth vote in Florida. Everyone else seemed to be going up. A lot of states were breaking records, and we actually declined in how many kids went out and voted. When I'm talking about youth voters, I'm talking about ages 18 to 27. That's what we call like a youth voter. They're more likely to vote Democrat by a lot, but for some reason they're not coming out and they're not actually voting. So we asked the question, why? Why is it that we hold such a massive voter registration margin for youth voters against the GOP? We're winning there, but for some reason they're not actually coming out to vote. Or if they are, they're voting for independent candidates. And we said two things. Number one, we all know that the party was in pretty dismal shape in terms of statewide organization at least 2 years ago. In terms of the youth caucuses, the high school Democrats, the college Democrats, the young Democrats, none of us ever got contacted by the party. We had no idea what was going on. We all worked independently. And just last year, for the high school Democrats, before I took power, we only had 3 clubs in the entire state, in 3 different schools. For some reason, COVID really killed it. That's because high schoolers need to go to school to join clubs. So then COVID kind of like, everyone was everywhere, it didn't really work. So now we're kind of coming back from that. And the Democratic Party has actually tried to keep us in constant contact with them, and we're actually being talked to, which is way better. And now we have around 40 clubs, 40 different schools across Florida, and it's only been like 6 months. So, yay! We know that youth involvement is weakest in the Panhandle. This makes sense, rural voters. The GOP currently has a near 35% youth voter registration advantage in the Panhandle, and we don't really contact the Panhandle, especially in terms of youth vote. We barely contact the Panhandle at all, unfortunately. This is also changing. We, as Florida High School Democrats, have made increased efforts to do rural outreach, and so has the college Democrats and the young Democrats, so this is changing. Yeah. So once again, even if a county has like a really big youth voter registration advantage, for some reason those kids are not coming out to vote. For example, in Broward County, I'm so sorry whoever's in Broward County, they have around a 65% advantage in voter registration for youth, which means like 65% of youth are more likely to be Democrats. They registered as Democrats. But for some reason, in the 2022 midterms, only 5% of kids turned out. Why? Like, I don't understand. Like, this was crazy. Turnout against youth Democrats is terrible. For some reason, people just aren't coming to the polls. Once again, we pointed that towards a lack of digital youth outreach. Social media is where we all are, but yet the Florida Democratic Party literally never posted on their socials until Nikki Fried came into power. Poor high school/college campus presence. Yeah, the Florida College Democrats were dead, the Florida High School Democrats were dead because of COVID, and minimal demographic-specific targeting. The issues that matter to young voters were just not being talked about because the Florida Democratic Party was continually messaging what appealed to older range voters, which is fine, but we also know that other communities, like the Hispanic community, like the LGBTQ community, we haven't really had any demographic-specific messaging towards them, towards issues that really matter. So of course they're not going to come out to vote because they don't think anything's at stake. But we all know that there's something really, really big at stake. Those things are like gun control legislation, their education, their LGBTQIA rights. These issues really, really matter to young voters, especially student voters, because kids see changes on their college campus all the time. I just want to compare us to Wisconsin, which saw massive gains, especially with the youth vote. The Wisconsin Democratic Party actually hired college campus directors that are paid by the party to coordinate the youth vote. So their youth vote turnout was actually insane. Florida does not have that yet. We're working on it, trust. We just need to actually have the money. And obviously zero communication with the high schoolers and the college Democratic caucuses was also really, really bad. But it's proof that even in a state where people didn't think youth were coming out to vote, if the party made a little bit more effort, it has insane results. Yeah, statewide, the Florida Democratic Party has a 17+ margin over the GOP in terms of youth registration, which means that if we got like 18 to 27-year-olds to come out and vote, we would be winning every single local election. Like, youth vote is actually the difference between winning and losing. And obviously there is an untapped Democratic youth base in Red County high schools and colleges. Because kids are under 18, we can't be put in the VAN database, which means that there's a lack of data of how many Democratic kids are in high schools. High school seniors can vote. I'll be voting for my first time in November 2024. But because, like, in a really red county, since we just see the data, which only comes from older voters, we don't even know there's Democrats in high schools, but there are so many Democrats in even Red County high schools, we're just not reaching out to them. But that's what Florida High School Democrats does, because we're high schoolers and we can go into a high school and say, hey, do you want to start a Democrat club? If a 50-year-old walked into a high school and said, hey, I want to start a political club, the school administrators are going to be like, no, that's weird. But if a student at that high school went and said, I want to start a Democratic club, they're more likely to say yes, because clubs have to be student-run and they have to be student-initiated. There are untapped blue, like, massive blue, like, holes in red counties, and they all revolve around high schools and they all revolve around colleges. Engaging youth across the state, and not necessarily partisan stuff, but just like nonpartisan things like voter registration, like civic engagement. It means that there's going to be a higher turnout rate for statewide elections, but also we're tapping potential candidates. We're building a bench. We're making sure that candidates actually look like the district that they're running for. If we have, right now, UCF's House District has a UCF student running for that district, which means that more UCF students are more likely to come out and vote. Unlike in 2022, when they had a 50-year-old running for that district, no one came out and voted. Yes, once again, we can do voter registration in high schools, as high schoolers. County DECs cannot, because that would be illegal. So, but if a high school student goes into their high school and does voter registration, it is not illegal if they're part of a club. Because people are always, like, adults are always like, oh, I want to start a high school Democrat club in my high school. I'm like, you can't do that, because the other version of adults who try and come and mess with things in high school, their name is Mom for Liberty. So that's why it's so vital that we have peer-to-peer contact and peer-to-peer voter registration. Not only is it more effective, but it's more like, yeah, it's just more effective. Oh no, I turned it off. Okay, so here's what we're doing about it. We all know that voter turnout in 2022 was awful, but the party has been making massive gains towards increasing youth voter turnout. Number one is that they're actively supporting high school Democrats and college Democrats, whether it be financially, just communication-wise. We are creating and engaging the student population at the vast majority of students, Florida colleges, and over 40 high schools in their biggest counties. And we're also reaching youth voters digitally in ways that I've never done before. So we talk to the Florida Democratic Party communications. We say, hey, this is what you should include in your weekly messaging plan. And we also created the Florida Democratic Party Ambassador Program, which is basically for progressive influencers in Florida who have like thousands and thousands and thousands of followers. They plug into our program and they basically amplify FDP communications to their audience of all teenagers. It's been really effective. We are trying to have every single elected official, Democratic elected official in Florida, run an internship program. I got started through an internship with Representative Ana Escamani. Most of my peers also did internships. But the problem is that internship programs for elected officials are very, very hard to come by. But with the culture around college admissions, especially for high schoolers, everyone is looking for one. There is no shortage of kids who want to do an internship, but there is a shortage of elected officials who are willing to put in the time and effort to run an internship program. And it's not even that, they don't even have to be paid. Like, I wasn't paid, it's not even a paid position, but we have a lack of elected officials that are willing to run one. So we encourage DECs to host a day where you just call up every single elected official and you I think you should have an internship program. I think you should contact high schoolers and see if anyone wants to come. I worked for Representative Escamani. It completely changed my life for a whole summer. I was contacting constituents. I learned how to plan and organize rallies because it's the same month that the Roe v. Wade decision got overturned. learn so much. And if only more internship programs were readily available to high schoolers, we would see so many new leaders being developed. Right now, I can tell you that half of Orange County's Democrat base and leaders are basically being run by alums of Representative Escamani's internship program. Encourage elected officials to create a youth advisory board. This is something that's happening on the federal level, and we want to bring it to Florida as well. Each congressional member in the House of Representatives has a youth advisory board. Representative Ross is starting one soon. It is basically it's not even to pass legislation, it's to encourage high schoolers to become more civically engaged. The congressman will meet with them once a month. It's a group of 10 to 20 high schoolers from their district and be like, what would you like to see? If the government could do anything for you, what would you like to see? It makes them feel like they're being heard even though they can't vote. And obviously student-led voter registration drives. We're putting a lot of effort and money towards this, and it's really, really working, especially with peer-to-peer voter registration. We recently held a drive in Orange County Public Schools. We had 10 schools participate, and we collected over 600 new voter registrations, which is awesome. And we know that number could be so much bigger when high schoolers as our classmates, we know that relational organizing is the #1 way to go with Florida high schoolers, and they're so much more likely to come up to a table if they see their classmate there, rather than an adult or a stranger that they don't know. The supervisor of elections is supposed to come to public schools every year and do voter registration, but when they do it, they just kind of table out in the middle of nowhere and no one goes towards them because it's a bunch of scary adults that you have no idea who they are. It's also worth noting that the supervisor of elections only comes to public schools. They don't come to private schools and they don't come to charter schools. But we have multiple high school Democrat clubs in private schools and in charter schools that they cover the voter registration there. But that's a luxury that very few counties can afford. So that's primarily what we've been doing. This is my contact information below. If you need to contact me for any reason, or you have a high schooler who needs a granddaughter, I have information here for Florida High School Democrats if they want to get plugged in. I also have pamphlets for Florida High School Democrats if you want to bring them. If you see a young person that might be interested, you can give it to them. This is Jada D'Onofrio, who's the chair of the Youth Council. This is also his information. These are a couple photos. This photo is actually a picture of the DEC Youth Student Council of Alachua County. Some of them are from UF, some of them are from local high schoolers, and it's really a program so that they can feel like they're being heard without relying on the school administration to tell them whether they can have a high school Democratic club. This is us when they be freed. This is me and my friends when we went to speak at a school board meeting. This is us at Leadership Blue, and this is us when we met Kamala Harris. So yeah, tons of exciting youth opportunities are coming to the party. We're super excited. We know that the Biden campaign is also recognizing this. Students for Biden is going to be in Florida really, really soon, and that's really exciting, and it's also kind of a secret, so that doesn't leave this room. But the Biden campaign and nationally, they recognize that there is a secret untapped base of Florida Democratic high schoolers and youth voters, and they are willing to put in the money, the time, and the effort to activate it. So, yeah, hop on board the youth train, guys. I'll take questions now. I am more than happy to take questions. I know that was a lot. So, if you have a question, you can go over there.
Yeah, so if everybody would just come to one side or the other for questions. And while I'm here, I'll start off. I just want to talk to your mother. You must be so proud. Your daughter is so impressive. So I'm looking forward to voting for you in a few years.
Thank you.
Actually, I do have a question, and maybe there is no answer, but so this is a room full of scary old people. Is there anything we can do to help with what you're doing?
I'm so glad you asked, because there's actually a lot. We try to have our high school Dems Club call their elected officials in their district and say, do you have an internship program? I really think you should have an internship program, but sometimes those calls go ignored. If you want to host a day where you call every elected official in your district and you're like, I'm a constituent and I feel like you should have more youth involved in your district, please start an internship program. It doesn't have to be paid. Obviously, there's power in numbers. If you want to encourage youth involvement in your district, that's the #1 way to do it. And all it does is require a phone call.
Yeah, unfortunately, our elected officials are from the wrong party.
I think that there is definitely power in hearing young people. If you have a grandniece or a granddaughter, you always want to try and include them in the adult conversation that usually is politics, because I think you'd be surprised at how much they would know. I mean, public high schools, their education are being attacked like every single day, and they're fighting back. Last year we hosted a rally. We had a bunch of high schoolers come out to Orlando City Hall, protesting, speaking for the first time. It's really that encouragement of developing public speaking skills and also developing like a knowledge around civic engagement. Guys, civics is no longer required as a credit to graduate high school. I can graduate high school without taking AP US government, and that is crazy. Like, Republicans want high schoolers to graduate with as little information about how to change the world as possible. So if civic education isn't being provided at high schools, if it's not part of the curriculum, take that burden upon yourself and try and teach it a little bit.
I want to second that you're very impressive.
Thank you.
I don't feel this way, but I hear all the time that the youth don't want to elect Biden because of his age. I wanted to ask you about that. Also, the 18-year-olds that are going to vote now, they were 14 when Trump was, or younger. Are you doing something to educate them about what his, presidency was really like?
Yes, for sure. So the Biden age thing, that's been a barrier, but I know that a lot of national youth organizations are constantly doing messaging to kind of reduce the Biden apathy a little bit, because I would rather have a Democratic president who does something and is old than have a Republican president who does nothing and is also old. That's being worked on. It's a difficult barrier to break through, because we know that a lot of voters are now registering as NPAs. But I also want to say that there's a large NPA youth voter population in Florida, but half of that is because kids will register as NPAs when they pre-register at 15 years old when they get their permit to drive in front of their parents. And then they forget to change their registration when they actually get older or they move out for college. So that's also something. The NPA population is truly, it leans left. And then for the Trump, I was 14 when Trump got elected. It was a sad day. Or when Biden ran. I guess it's not even about who was doing the policies, it's really about Ron DeSantis, especially at the Florida level, because we know that the Moms for Liberty craziness is actually insane, and we've seen the impacts on that daily. Orange County Public Schools couldn't offer AP Psychology this year because they got told by the Board of Education that they couldn't, but then Florida High School Democrats released a tweet and it went viral, and then they said that we could, but at that point it was already too late. So high schoolers see the direct impact of Ron DeSantis' educational agenda, and I think that's something that really, really resonates with them beyond even Trump's foreign aid and foreign experience. I'll take another question. Yeah.
Hi, I'm wondering if you have connections with Leaders We Deserve.
Yes, I met David Hogg. I met him 2 weeks ago. I have connections with Leaders We Deserve. They're a wonderful organization that will also be in Florida, especially in HD 35 for the special election in January. Yeah.
Do you find that youth tend to be a little more progressive in their thinking, at least the ones that get involved with your Democratic organization?
Yes. Just statistically, youth are more likely to identify as really progressive Democrats. The Sunrise Movement, Gen Z for Change, all of these are very, very progressive organizations. And we are also working on turning out even progressive voters for what we consider to be non-progressive candidates like Joe Biden. Yeah.
I'm very curious to know what the effect of all the book bans are on the high schools and what you found this year in school.
The book bans really apply to elementary and middle schools because the excuse is that they're too mature, so they usually get put in different grade levels, or they just take it out of the library completely. Representative Frost just filed a legislation called Fight the Book Bans Act. He recently had a press conference and he invited Florida high school Democrats to come read banned books in front of the press. That's definitely been like a very hot topic issue. And even though it doesn't affect high schoolers, it affects the teachers of elementary middle schoolers. So we're seeing a lot of teachers become more willing to sponsor Democrat clubs in their high school, which is definitely a good thing. But yeah, the book bans, it's also been something that people talk about at the school board meetings that high schools hear about. We have high schoolers go to almost every single one of their school board meetings and speak out because it is so much more powerful when a high schooler comes and speaks against the governing body of their school than when an adult does it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And me again. Is the serious question though? Is the Israel-Hamas war having an effect on Joe Biden's popularity with young people, either positive or negative?
I will say that the polling right now is it's not super accurate because it is such a hot topic issue. I will say that the general high school population, I would consider not, it is such a nuanced and complex issue. I would say that the general high school population, isn't apathetic towards it, but they don't, it's not really on their radar. I will say that the very progressive sects of the youth vote are they're not super pleased with Biden's, perspective on it. Florida High School, the High School Democrats of America made a statement, the Florida Democratic Party makes a statement, and the Florida High School Democrats stand by the Florida Democratic Party's statement. So, yeah, but it is having an impact on his, it's definitely having an impact on his popularity.
Anybody else? I'm just curious, what do you plan on majoring in at Harvard?
I am a government and Spanish major.
I was just going to respond to somebody who said that we don't have the right representative to call about youth internships. Well, how about calling the wannabes? If they can have interns, we might finally get a Democrat representing this area. Yeah.
And the internships can exist at every single level of the government, from a congressional representative all the way down to a county commissioner. I guarantee if they actually started it, publicized it on their website, they would get applications.
I've all of a sudden forgotten the word for it, but on the high schoolers that get put down, for, whatever clothes they're wearing or whatever, what you're asking of the students that in this predominant Republican area in the high schools, it's really hard for the younger people to stand up for, and I'm sure that they probably get put down or cornered for their individualism. Can you speak to that and how that is going on in the high schools?
Yes. So high schools right now are very, very progressive, which is a good thing because down in Brevard County, Monarch High School actually is being fined $16,000 because they let a trans athlete play in a volleyball tournament. That school, which doesn't even have a high school Democrat club, rallied around that student and walked out in solidarity with that student. So which is a beautiful thing. So I would say that the only one putting trans high school students down aren't even the high schoolers, it's adults. High schoolers are very supportive of other high schoolers, even if they don't personally agree with it. It's just a Gen Z ideology. Historically, Gen Z is the most diverse racially, sexual orientation-wise of any of the other generations, and that comes with an ideology of straight up tolerance for anything. So we're seeing high school communities come together for progressive policies. that they don't even know are inherently political. And Monarch High School is starting a high school Democratic club next Monday.
I'm back. I do have another question, and it has more to do with what is going on. And when you see the students, unless you show them the urgency, because right now you can talk about all these things, the LGBTQ, you can talk about what's going on, but you're talking about women's rights and you're talking about democracy. And if we don't show the youth that democracy is at stake and they won't have the country that their parents had and they need to get out and vote, it can't change.
Exactly, and they are already seeing the effects of this at the high school level. Like, if you wanted to go by a specific preferred name, even if it was a nickname, your parents and you had to sign like a permission slip. They're seeing the effects of like threats to democracy, and I think that obviously there's a bigger picture thing on a national level about women's rights and like democracy as a whole, but they already know what's going on because their teachers can't say stuff in class. Like, they can't like be on their cell phones during school, even if it's an emergency. Like, these are direct policies. They can't take AP Psychology, they can't take AP African American Studies, even though every single other state in the country gets to offer those courses. Florida high school students are now at a disadvantage, not only in college admissions, but just their like futures are at stake because employers won't, sadly, employers don't value like the value of a Florida high school public education is being devalued because they don't take courses like AP Psychology, like AP African American Studies, which can give them college credit. That makes college more expensive because I have to take more classes, and that makes a Florida public education more devalued for employers. So, I mean, the effects of this are truly devastating, and I think high schoolers are definitely seeing it.
We know that if Joe Biden runs, we need to support him. But there is a possibility he may not run for a number of different reasons. Is there a candidate, potential candidate out there that youth tend to gravitate towards right at the moment?
No. I mean, I look at the presidential landscape, it's like Marianne Williamson and Dean Phillips and Joe Biden. Dean Phillips just like dug himself his own grave with like his recent statements against Kamala Harris and like a bunch of other things. He's not like a super progressive candidate either. Marianne Williamson is just like, she's just in another world. Like, I don't even like you don't know her. I think Joe Biden definitely has the best chance.
Quick question. Who wants to be a teacher in Florida?
That's another thing. We're seeing decreased rates of education majors in Florida, besides the fact that some majors are close to not even being offered, like gender and sexuality studies, like ethnicity, race, and migration studies. This is part of the reason why I chose to go out of state for college, because I know that my majors and what I'm interested in, those classes may potentially not be offered for me to take in college. So that's definitely going to affect our teacher population. Florida also already has a massive teacher shortage. The vice chair of Florida High School Democrats goes to be in high school in Orlando. Her AP statistics teacher quit after 2 weeks, and they were sitting in class, in an AP class where they had to take an AP exam for college credit at the end of May, where they had to like know and be on curriculum. They sat in a classroom without a teacher for 5 weeks alone before they could find a replacement. There's a massive teacher shortage, and it's going to affect everyone because those kids are now a month behind everyone else, and come May, they're going to be learning materials they should have been learning in March, and they have to take the exam, and they're going to have like a whole chapter missing from their studying. Yeah. Oh, I need to pull the winning numbers for the raffle. Guys, this is really exciting.
Thank you.
Rhea's gotta go to bed now. Thank you so much for coming. We loved your presentation.